Okay, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And if you're in the here and now, welcome as well. This is Grant Cameron, and I have an old friend of mine, Wendy Gallant, coming in from Ontario. And she sent me an email a couple of days ago to tell me that she had been at a physical medium seance. And I have sort of moved on from UFOs, and I think this is where I want to go. And the physical medium that you had seen is the same one that I'm watching. I've actually proposed an experiment a couple of days ago to Matt the Pond guy to do an experiment
Oh, okay.
on this because I think there's some pretty clear stuff that can be proved one way or the other as to what's going on. So welcome, Wendy, and let's get right down to it. Uh, you can maybe give me a little background on what you've been doing since we last met, which is probably a year ago. You're still doing the blindfold stuff, I imagine,
Yeah.
and then let's get into the physical mediumship and the apportations and stuff like that, which I'm
Okay.
absolutely fascinated with.
It was a fascinating experience, I'll tell you. Yeah, I'm doing the Seeing Blindfold. I'm still training Mark, who is got both eyes detached retinas, and his prognosis isn't really good. And he contacted me in preparation for that he may lose his sight. So far he hasn't totally lost it. He's lost the left, but not the right. And we're just going. He's amazing. He is amazing to watch. And so I'm still
Wow.
doing that. He's the only one I'm training right now. So I actually saw this retreat that Deb Shockey and Melissa Kane and Kimberly Marie were putting on in Wisconsin, and they invited me to go on up. And so the very last minute, something just told me that I had to go.
Okay, whereabouts in Wisconsin are we talking here?
I'd have to look it up again. It's
Okay.
called it's a place that Melissa Kane owns, and she's had it. She's been going up there since her childhood, and it's right on a lake, and she calls it the Big Arb Retreat.
Oh, wow. So how,
Yeah,
how many hours drive is that for you?
for me it was 11 hours
Oh, okay. So it's
get
quite a
there.
ways.
So it's up by the bottom of Lake Superior. So I had
Oh,
to
yeah.
go over the Mackinac Bridge and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's beautiful country, absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful country.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
I went up because they were doing, Deb was going to do different kinds of meditations, which I'm all about. And I just wanted to practice with her. And we were going to do sky watches. And I didn't even know there was going to be a seance. I
Wow.
had, I had no idea. And so when I went up my first night there, everybody was doing a meet and greet thing. And actually, Julie came over. I didn't even know who she was. She came over and chatted with me, and so
So
did
explain
Mike.
who Julie is for the people, because I'm
Oh,
not even sure I know who Julie is.
oh, Julie Andretti. She works with Michael Shane. She's also a physical medium, and they do it together now.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so she was chatting with me, and then Michael was there, and I never talked to him, but for some reason we were kind of catching eye contact that first night. Then the next night we there was introduction with them, and they went through everything that they did together, and they explained everything. And Michael actually had a table full of the jewels and stuff that he's actually imported. And that's when I kind of realized what this was all about, because I didn't know at all.
So explain to people for that maybe not know apportation. What's your definition of what this is?
Well, Michael explained it. He brings it through his mouth. That part
Okay.
I couldn't understand. Can't understand that. He it comes through his mouth. He says some jewels are so big that actually knocked his teeth out at one point in time.
Yeah.
That blew my mind. And he had rings, and he had huge jewels, and he let us see them all and explained what he did. And he actually had some oils there that were very, very rare oils, and apparently he imported that also.
Wow.
And yeah, it was quite fascinating. Everybody was asking him how he imported them, and he was explaining how that it comes out of his belly. He has a straw, and when he goes into trance, it comes out of his belly in a straw and goes into these little jars.
Wow.
So yeah, and it was fascinating for me. And they had them all off to the side. You could buy them if you wanted to. So anyway, so they explained everything, and Julie explained what she did, and she didn't she didn't want to do the physical part. She she does a portation outside of her cage, I call it. And they both use ectoplasm,
Yeah.
and she used it as a cloud above.
Okay.
Not he physically produces it in his body. So, and I didn't really understand all of that stuff when I first got there, like it was all new to me.
Is she apporting stuff too?
Yes, she is. Yes. Not out of
Are they
her.
working at the same time, or do they do it separately?
They're both in trance at the same time.
Okay.
And she actually um he apported out of his mouth at the end of the seance. She apported during the seance, and a cloud came into the ceiling, and we had small jewels rain down on us. Like, I
Wow.
mean, actually, like they were being thrown at us. And
So is it in dark, or are you in red light?
um, we were in dark, but one of the husbands of their friends that they were with, he had a red light.
Okay.
And so they weren't allowed. Apparently, if there was any bright light, it actually harms the
Yeah.
two people.
Yeah.
So we couldn't even go in with jewelry on, because even the reflection of the jewelry could harm the two people. I knew nothing about that either.
Okay.
So anyway, so when it came to the seance, there was 28 of us, and we walked into this room, and they had their two cages there, and they're just squares with curtains hanging on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we started, we were all in a circle with these two things in front, and they had a huge bowl on a table in front of Julia, and she said that she was told to have this bowl in the front. And they had ping pong balls there, and they had trumpets there and drums there. They had all this stuff sitting there, and they were explaining it all to us.
Yeah.
And I had no idea still what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there. So we're sitting in the circle, and first we had to prepare Michael, and they picked people out of the audience to go up, and they zip tied his arms to the chair.
Yeah.
His arms and legs, zip tied them to the chair, marked on his arms where the zip tie was, so that if he moved or anything, that would show on his arm that it had moved. And then they put tape across his mouth, and other people did the same thing with Julius. So after they did that, and they had different people doing different things, and everybody was confirming that that was done, and that there was no way that they could move or they could talk or they could do anything. And Michael had a beard and a mustache, and they just put tape right across it all.
Wow.
And he said, "Don't even worry about it." So anyway,
okay, two questions on this. One is, did he eat before? Because this is something I didn't realize. Does he actually eat before he starts?
he didn't say.
Oh, you didn't say.
He didn't say. Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the theories that people will throw out is that they bring it up from their stomach. So in the one that I heard about, where he did 1,800 objects, he ate an entire pizza before the whole thing began, just as before the seance began.
Oh, really?
So if it was coming from his stomach, there should be a lot of pizza coming up with it. So that was the one thing. What was the other thing? Or did they put water in his mouth with the?
Yes, they did. They put water in his mouth. Yeah, they did that.
Do you use colored water or just regular water?
I wasn't part of that. I think regular water.
Okay.
Regular water.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think at one point they ripped the tape off, and he rinsed out his mouth, and then they put more water in, and then they put more tape in on his mouth again.
Oh, okay.
I remember that at that one point. So anyway, so they went in and they closed the curtains.
Yeah.
And they shut the lights down. Okay.
Yeah.
So then we were waiting. Actually, everybody, they didn't want to know names, so they just give each one a number. So there was 28 of us, so they didn't know what number matches with the person because it was dark. So they did that, and then Michael and and Julie went into their trance. We were sitting there quietly doing that. As they were doing that. And then all of a sudden, everything just started happening at once. And the curtains and everything, that the cages they were in just started jumping around and moving and stuff. And there was people right up beside it. It wasn't like we were all back. There was people all the way around watching all of this. And the horns were going off, and they were jumping up and down, and they had fluorescent lights on the front of these curtains, and you could see like there was almost like people walking in front of it like this and dancing and everything. And so we were watching that. And then Lady Nada came in.
Okay, who's Lady Nada? I've heard about her before.
She is I knew just a second. Lady Nada. She is associated with Christ.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'll just find it.
And he brings her forward every time. Is that correct?
That I don't know. This
okay,
was
okay.
First serving in the temple of love. Ascended Lady. Nada is the Ascended Lady Master, who is the cohort of the sixth ray. She is a feminine being of great light and love who once served in the temples. So
okay.
Anyway.
And you can hear her voice and everything?
I actually, when I was sitting there, all this was going on, and she was talking to us. She first she gave us a blessing, and then she started talking to each individual person, and she told each person that they could ask her a question.
So does the voice move around to the people, or does she just?
It's usually it's in front of Michael's cage. The voice was coming from there, and so
she calls you by name. So
you're in by number. By number. Oh, she started
okay.
1, 2, and 3. So each person got to ask her a question. And the odd thing about it is when that was going on, I missed a little bit because I started seeing, and psychically seeing her. I can't say her. All I saw was it forming is a woman with gold at the top. I couldn't even make out if it was a crown or what it was.
Yeah.
She was wearing a white dress with a sash, and the red dress didn't come down past her calves. So I was seeing that. So I was missing a little bit because I was trying to psychically see her face and whatever. Someone asked her to describe herself, and she said she had long blonde hair and she had a very good figure, is what she said.
Yeah.
She had quite the sense of humor. Anyway, so everybody was asking questions, and the answers to some of the questions were fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And one fellow asked why he was a twin, and she explained that he had separated his personality. He didn't want to be by himself, and he separated his personality. So it was really, really fascinating, everybody's questions that they answered, or she answered. And so as they came around, and meanwhile, there was ping pong balls sitting on the table, and all of a sudden the ping pong balls all by themselves started flying at us all. They flew at us, and then one hit my foot, and then all of a sudden they flew back and back all by themselves. It changed directions and flew back to the tents again. And so I'm sitting there through all this, and all this is happening at once. You got to imagine all this is happening at once. And the bowl in front, while that was happening also, the people at the front saw this. They were told that a craft was going to come in, and 2 people saw a small craft that was by the side of a plate come in and hover over this bowl that they were asked to put there. And so as everybody was asking the questions, this craft came in, it sat there, and apparently for the last 15 questions that were asked, it sat there. And then at the end of the 15, I heard all these things drop into this bowl, and then I didn't see it take off, but apparently it went straight up and left the room.
So this would be like a UFO shape type thing?
Yeah, they said it was like a half moon. I didn't see it. The 2 people up front saw it, and they said it was like a half moon disc. So then while I was sitting there, they called my number, and I was number 14. And so as they called me, I asked my question, and my question was almost ignored because she said that I was called to go up to the front for a healing, is what they told me. And I'm like, so then the fellow with the red light came over and got me and led me up to the front of Michael's thing. And
Okay.
then he walked away and he sat down. And as I'm standing there, I had no idea what was going to happen. And as I'm standing there, two hands came out of the curtain on each side of my face and pulled me forward and kissed me on the forehead.
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa. And then I'm feeling it. And it's the arms and that felt really kind of like marshmallow, like really soft, marshmallowy, but definitely fingers, definitely a face, definitely, you know. And then they turned me around and wrapped their arm around my neck like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then a hand came over and put their hand on my chest and then put a hand on my back for a few minutes. And then I won't say what it said, but I had a special thing said in my ear. And then I was kind of pushed forward. Now, I didn't realize at the time, but they told me I was going up for a healing, and I have a defective heart, and I have a bulging disc in my back that I've been suffering from for a long time. Nobody at the place ever knew that.
Wow.
And nobody knew about my heart. I've had it since I was a kid. Nobody knew about it. So I'm interested to go have it checked out. The pain in my back has gone away, and I've been suffering with that for ages. So then they sent.
Could you sense whether the hands were a man's hands or a woman's hands or
man's hands?
Okay.
So since it was man's hands, taller than me, of course, and for sure taller than me. And the face, when I felt that, it was the same kind of this really soft stuff, but it was.
So then it wasn't Michael, but didn't have a beard. You could feel the face. I mean, you're touching the
Oh
face.
yeah, the face. No, the face touched me. Yeah, kissed me on the forehead. I felt it all. Yes, and I felt the fingers. I felt everything. Yeah,
Okay.
and afterwards, I'll be honest. Afterwards, I was a little messed up. It's like what? And I'll finish it. They turned me around, and then they sent me back to my chair, and I was pretty trying to process it all, you know. And she said, Leonie said to me, do you know who that was? And I said, my husband. And she said, yes, it was.
Wow.
And so I sat down and I was still processing, and they finished all the other questions and stuff while all this was going on. And the weird part about it is they started playing this music, and it was the music that I played right after my husband passed away. It was something that I guess relieved the stress. And it was really funny because it was the Black Eyed Peas, It's Going to Be a Good Night. But I would play that really, really loud, and somehow it helped me at the time. And I would box to it. But it was really strange that is the music they played loud. And they had us all singing it and stuff. And I said to the fellow next to me, Doug, thank heavens he was beside me. And I said to him, I played that all the time. And he said, well, that's a strange one to play. And I was actually, yeah, you're right. So anyway, I sat there and they finished all the questions and stuff. And then as we're sitting there, we just got this, everybody said, I can see this cloud forming on the ceiling. And next thing I know, jewels are raining down on us, little tiny jewels. I have them here. Little tiny jewels raining down on us. Like, I mean, it wasn't like raining. It was like it was thrown at us, poof, like that. It surprised us all straight down. And then after that happened, then they said it, and she said goodbye type of thing. And then it was over. They're still playing the music. Everybody was pumped as anything. And so then the lights came on. And we looked around, and there was little tiny jewels all over the floor. So then we walk up, and here in the bowl where there's really, they were like, they called it like tools for everyone to use. They were like, I wrote it down here. There's 24 cosmic white fire sacred geometric tools for Michael and Julia, and they actually gave them to other people that were in the group also. There was 24 of them that dropped out of this craft into this bowl. And
explain what these are. I'm not following what these things are.
To me, they looked, when you look straight down on them, they were all different shapes, and they were about that big.
Okay.
And they were all different shapes. You could look at them, they're almost clear through. But when the light was on them, they appeared to almost have, they were iridescents with all different colors in them.
And what are they used for?
They said there were tools for Michael and Julie to use, and also Deb Shockey got one, and the fellow next to me got one. And they told him he was going to be the next Tesla. He was going to create free energy for the world so they gave him this tool, which was really kind of bizarre. And so these were in there, and then they turned the lights back on, and then they brought Michael out. They all had to come out of their trances first, and Michael, they opened the curtain. There was Michael still sitting there, still with the ties on, still with the tape on. They ripped off the tape, they cut the zip ties, and he came out. And the first thing he wanted is some water to rinse his mouth. He rinsed some water, and then he asked to eat some watermelon, which I thought, I didn't understand that part. They brought watermelon, and he had a little bit of watermelon. Then they took that away, and then he was standing there, and then he asked, bring a towel. So they brought a towel out, and he just started spitting out these jewels. And there was 189 of them that he spit out onto this. Now I have a tape of him doing it, spitting out on this table or on this cloth. And they had them all on there. And apparently, as the evening went on, each jewel was meant for someone. And I got this one, this tiny one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Does that have any significance to you?
Yeah, he said to me, as he gave it to me, he said, that's from your husband. And I went, that has any significance? And I was, well, no. And he says, your husband says it's the color. It's my husband's favorite color, red.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
So who would know? So anyway, so I went back, and they picked up all these tiny jewels off the floor. They counted them, they separated them out, and we all got some. And
so how many of those were there?
1,881 when they finished.
1,881 of these things that they came out of the cloud?
Yes, 1,800.
Plus 100 and how many?
189 out of Michael.
And then these things in the bowl. Well, how many of those?
24. I can send you pictures. I have pictures of
them.
them.
If you can we include the video with this? Because you're going to broadcast it on yours as well. That's because Desta got the video too.
Oh yeah.
And that's when I said Desta was saying she was going to. Did he mention the thing about the portal? How these things form in his mouth in a portal?
Yeah, he explained it. He didn't explain how. He says when it forms in his mouth, and that he says when they come up, there's no saliva. It's not like anything touched him personally.
Yeah,
that's what he told us, and that when they come out, they're bone dry. It's not like he threw them up or anything. And when he was dropping them into this towel, there was no liquid coming with it. There was nothing coming with it.
That's the question I asked. That's the question I asked Desta.
Yeah.
So anybody that thinks they can fake it, good luck. I put $1,000 up to anybody who thinks they can fake this, because that's what I asked Desta. First thing I said, were they dry? And she said, yeah, they were dry. And I said, this is the real deal. I mean, if they're dry, especially that's maybe why he's eating the watermelon. Like I mentioned before, in the other one, he had eaten a pizza before. So if he's bringing them up from his stomach, then he's going to bring up watermelon as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That may be what part of the demonstration
maybe,
is.
Because there was a lot of people over in that area, and I was at the other side, and I thought it was very unusual he was eating a watermelon, but you're absolutely right. And then seriously, there was just 4 people held the towel or this cloth, and he just stood there, and they were just coming out of his mouth. like no liquid, no nothing, just jewels, bone dry jewels coming
Give
out.
me the give me the numbers again.
189 from him,
Okay. Or from yeah, okay.
from his mouth.
Yeah.
1,881 from the
The
cloud from
cloud.
Julie. Yeah, that
Wow.
was from the ectoplasmic cloud that formed, and they said the cloud formed from her trance, and these things were literally thrown at us. This didn't fall out. We all were shocked. What the heck's happening? And they were everywhere. There was people on their hands and knees picking them up everywhere. Yeah.
Was there stuff coming just from straight down or into your throwing at your
Oh,
like as if someone's standing in
right
front
at
of you?
us, like thrown right at us.
Wow.
Yeah, it thrown right at us, and it was in my hair. It was all over my, like they threw it right on my lap, and there were, it was in behind our chairs and everything. It was like it came down like a hailstorm. That's what it felt like, a tiny little hailstorm coming down hitting us. Yeah,
Wow.
it was pretty cool. And then we all got on our hands and knees and picked them up and put them all on the table. And I think it was Melissa and Kimberly sat there for, I swear, an hour, counting them and separating them out for everybody. Yeah.
So you got part of the 1881?
Yeah, I did. I hope I'll try to show it to you.
Yeah.
I can. There.
Oh, there you go.
That's what I got out of them. And there's some clear ones. And actually, I went over and she told me what each one means.
Wow.
Yeah, the clear ones are apparently for my back, and I think the blue ones were for stress.
Wow.
Yeah, and then that one came from Michael, the green one, and it was for desertion and for learning that it's
Wow.
helped me learn. Apparently they're encoded. It doesn't matter what they're made out of. They're encoded. And then the red one, of course.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Would you go back? I mean, is it
Oh,
that's
yeah.
it's quite the show, eh?
Well, I like, considering I had no idea what was happening, and and it was all, everybody was asking me what it was like when I had the hands come out. Everybody was asking me, and I was just, oh, that's what I was going to tell you. I was explaining why everything felt spongy, like marshmallow and stuff, but
Yeah.
it was definitely hands and definitely a face, and someone definitely spoke in my ear.
Okay,
What
that's what I wanted to ask you. You can't say what it was, but was it significant?
I'll tell you what it was. It was the very last minute before they were done. Like, I was wondering what's going on. They turned me around. Their arm went like this. The hand went on my chest, held it there for a few minutes, then turned around, held it on my back like that,
Yeah.
and then both hands went on my shoulder, and in my ear it went, "I love you,"
Oh, there
and
you go.
then pushed me back to my chair.
What kind of voice? Was it a male voice?
Oh yeah, for sure. Deep male voice. Yeah, it was a male voice.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Were you the only one that got the healing thing?
I was the only one called up.
Oh, because Desta was called up too.
Was she?
Yeah, and her back was healed. She went back actually last weekend or the weekend before or whatever. She went back again for because it had come back after 6 months. The pain had come
Ah,
back, but
okay.
it'd been gone. She had it since she got thrown out of a vehicle when she was young and having
Uh,
a good time and landed on her tailbone and she's
well,
had a problem.
my back was from carrying too heavy a stuff and not the right posture, so I had a bulging disc, and I've been
Oh,
trying to fix that for like 6 years.
there you go.
And when I came home, it was there a little bit. It's not there now. It's gone. I'm tempted to have my heart checked, because what I'm feeling is that it's going to sound strange, but I feel like I've got more oxygen going through. Like, I feel
Okay.
I'm not feeling as
Well,
tired. And
yeah,
yeah,
you should check it out.
I'm thinking of doing that. Yeah.
We got free medical in Canada. You can check it
It's
out.
getting them to do it. Yeah. Oh, I just want to check out my heart.
Yeah, well, it's sure just to and then get it in writing as to what
Well,
the diagnosis is.
that'd be interesting. What actually happens with my heart, and I have not felt it yet since then, is my heart will start beating fast.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I've learned that when it does that, like, and it'll even happen if I'm sitting cross-legged meditating, all of a sudden it'll just start and it feels like a little hammer. And I've learned that if I take a deep breath, really deep breath, and then go out, that it'll stop it. So that's what I've been doing. Haven't felt it since.
Wow.
Nothing. Nothing.
Now you missed your husband since he was, since he died. Was this uh healing? Was it did it really set you sort of like feeling a
Um,
lot better about the situation?
I actually always have felt okay about it, because I always felt I have seen him. I sound
Oh,
weird.
you've had contact with him.
I've
Okay.
had contact with him. Yeah, I have. This one was, I have to tell you, it took me a while to process it, if you can
Yeah.
imagine. It took me a long time to process it. Everybody was asking me about the feeling. I forgot to tell you that. Everybody was asking about me about that. The two girls that I was bunking with asked me, and they went back and talked to Julie. And what she said is the ectoplasma, that's what it feels like. It feels squishy and marshmallowy
Mhm.
and that. So what I described is exactly how it forms, I guess. So
And you filmed him doing this thing, and hopefully you
I
can provide me. And that's the thing I said to Desta, because I think you can do some scientific work. I mean, you, for example, can recover some of these jewels with a little tiny sterile uh, thing as he's shooting them out, and then test it to see if there's any saliva on it.
yeah,
And because that's the idea. And that's said to Desta, because she's going to learn to train to do this. And I said, when you do, and I've got the camera, make sure you open your mouth so I can film inside your mouth. It's because she filmed, but you couldn't really see inside his mouth. You could see the
I
stuff coming out.
I just have them with the stuff coming out, but
Yeah.
I can guarantee you there was nothing wet there at all. And I'm actually taking the same course as she is because when I booked it, I saw her name.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So then when I come to Ontario, you're gonna do a seance and Desta's gonna do a seance and we'll do some experiments, we'll do some DNA stuff. That's what I actually wanted to do was I wanted to do Kai Muga, who's the German physical medium. We were going to try to get a DNA sample because his control is a guy that we actually know who it was. It was a former parapsychologist from Germany,
Okay.
and we wanted to check him before he went into trance, take his DNA, and then when he's in trance, the DNA should change. And that's what we wanted to do. But then I discovered that these things come out dry, so there's not going to be any saliva. You can't get a DNA sample,
That's right.
and
It
so
is definitely dry.
but
Oh,
we can definitely check to see. I mean, that's pretty. I mean, anybody who thinks they can fake this, you're going to have to fake it dry. You can't have any saliva on it. You can't bring it up
oh,
from your stomach. You got to drink the water. You got to eat the watermelon. You got to eat the pizza, and you
yeah.
all the controls are.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's obviously done this long enough to know what he needs to do to improve it to people for sure.
yeah,
And also nothing had changed in the room. Like we were in there meditating, meet and doing meet and greet and everything. I knew what the ceiling looked like. There was nothing in that ceiling to allow jewels to be actually pelted down on us because it came down so hard. Everybody was like, whoa, what's going on? I didn't even know what it was. And then I realized everybody started looking and they're like, there's little jewels all over the floor. Yeah, 1,881 of them. So,
wow,
yeah.
that's fascinating. It's the same guy. I mean, it's like he's going to be as I told you. I think he's going to be in Toronto in November.
Mhm.
And he's doing another one down in that village thing where all the seances take place. But I think you'll be there in November. I'll be there in November. I wanna see this. I'm just getting the exact date and I'm going to book in there
Yeah.
and maybe do some of these experiments and go from there because I'm just fascinated with this whole thing.
It was absolute, I have to tell you, absolutely fascinating. And it was really interesting to go in there with I had no idea what I was going in for. And I was watching all the precautions and all the preparatory stuff that was going on. And they had two people there to make sure the safety things were there because I had no idea why I had to take all my jewelry off. Like I guess there was safety issues
Yeah.
for both Michael and Julie. So it was yeah, it was fascinating, and I definitely would go again now. it was fascinating.
And you're going to train for this. So it's how many week courses? 8 week or 12-week courses?
I'm not actually sure. I just saw it and booked it, and then all of a sudden I realized that Dustin's name was on there too. So
Yeah.
it's quite a few people, and yeah, it's just so fascinating, just so fascinating. And to have, like, you can imagine me walking up to that curtain. I had no idea what was coming. I had no idea, and I just walk up. The curtain is like this, and two hands come out and just grab me by cheeks like this, and then
Wow.
pull me forward. It was just.
That's interesting that I've heard two of these healing things that he does, and I knew both people. So
Oh,
Desta, I think, was the only one that got healed in hers, and you're the one that got healed in yours. And it's kind of,
it was funny. Everybody said to me afterwards, it's really funny. None of them knew about my husband.
yeah,
None of them did, except Deb. Deb's was the only one that did. Um, and everybody said they all felt that it was going to be me. I had no idea. I had no idea that, they just said they just felt that that was going to happen. So I was absolutely shocked when they told me to come up to the front. So, and
wow,
they said for healing, and I'm like, how do they know there's nothing wrong with me? How do they know? Like, I'm out hiking and stuff. I never tell anybody. I've had it
yeah.
for so long, I just ignore it. And yeah, it was pretty crazy. Yeah.
Was there any other weird stories that people had that were significant that they were telling?
Um, well, each one asked their own private, I can't really say. They're all asking their own private questions all the way around. So yeah. But
Yeah,
they did tell the one guy beside me, I hadn't met him yet. And apparently he's pretty smart. And they told him that he was going to be the next guy to develop free energy for the world. And he got one of those special jewels. So yeah.
wow. Did you get any photographs of those special things, those
Oh yeah,
jewels?
I have them. I have all of
Oh,
them.
wow. So you got everything I need here. I
Well,
mean, this is,
I took pictures of it all. I took pictures of it all. It was pretty mind blowing. And it seriously took me a long time to process it. I went back, I was almost like not shocked, but I was like, whoa, what just happened type of thing. Can you imagine if that happened to you? Like yeah, it took me like overnight to process what just happened. So
yeah, fascinating.
yeah.
Well, well, thanks for sharing. Wait, let's go through your channel. Like, you're going to post this, I imagine, and probably with some photographs and videos and stuff. So, what's your YouTube channel?
It's still Learning Intuitive Sight.
Okay.
And that's both my Facebook and my YouTube channel. It's both the same thing. And yeah, I had a lot of people asking me about it while I was away, and a lot of people didn't know anything about it. So I got a chance I could have actually taught a class there if I had wanted to. Everybody was fairly interested in it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's another significant thing that it's like Max Planck says, science and the paranormal advance one funeral at a time. And I guess for this kind of stuff, we're still a few funerals away from it sort of getting into the mainstream. But the more it gets out there, the more people talk about it,
Yeah.
the more people realize that this kind of stuff is going on, and they can be skeptical all they want. I still have the challenge. If you think you can do it, with the controls, we know what the controls are, and $1,000. And if you can do it, well, you get your $1,000. If you don't, you lose your $1,000. But you have to bring it up with no saliva. It has to be dry, and that's the experiment. I think is very easy to do. I'm trying to get Matt to do that. Is to get one of these things as it's coming out into a sealed container market. Everybody signs it, and then just analyze it. And if it comes up with no saliva,
Yeah.
then this idea of the portal is real. And if Desta can keep her mouth open, or if you do it, make sure that if I'm photographing, you keep your mouth open so I can see. Because I think maybe they told you that these things form as they're coming out of the mouth. So sometimes they're not even fully formed as they're coming out of the mouth. They're still,
They told us not to touch them.
yeah,
Not to touch them, because if we did, they could disappear. They're not fully formed. So
yeah.
we had to not touch anything. Even the ones that were landed on me, don't touch them. Like they're like physically, don't even pay attention to them. And
Wow.
once they're fully formed, and then they told us after midnight. Oh, how'd that go? We had to touch them before midnight, and then they were ours once they were fully formed. And if we touched them before then they would totally disappear. And
So you had to wait how many hours before you touched them?
I can't remember what time the
Yeah.
seance was done, but we had to wait till at least midnight. And then
Okay.
once midnight came, then we were allowed to touch him.
Wow.
And also, Michael said also, this was interesting, the jewels don't form. He says the jewels come from somewhere else. So they come from somewhere else. He's not creating new ones. They're coming from somewhere at some timeline, and they're coming to him from some timeline. He doesn't create them.
Okay.
I found that fascinating. So I'm wondering where mine came from.
Yeah, I've heard that like with the newspapers that somebody leaves a newspaper and they pull this newspaper from the past or whatever, and it's something that somebody threw out or misplaced or
Yeah,
it's kind of weird. It's that's the idea of apportation, that they're moving things rather than
yeah,
like
yeah.
there's manifestation, which is forming something from nothing,
Mhm.
and then there's the apportation, which is moving it from another timeline or another
And yeah,
place or whatever. And so it's interesting. He's an interesting guy. I mean, now I've heard you, and we did an interview with Desta. You can look on my YouTube channel where
okay.
Desta tells her story
Yeah.
about going
I
in.
I actually, after this all happened, somebody said that you interviewed both of them. Did you? You interviewed.
Matt and Desta. Yeah, and Matt
Oh,
was very skeptical. So
oh,
he was doing the checking. He got to check Michael over, and he said he was just floored. He could not. He said something's got to be, and he could not figure out how this had
uh,
been done.
I have the
And
pictures of him with the tape across his mouth, and I wish I could have videotaped when they were putting all the zip
yeah,
ties on his arms and stuff. But I watched it all happen, and he had different people doing different things, so it wasn't the same people, and it was people from the audience, not the people with him.
yeah, yeah.
So to prove it all, so it was, yeah, it was, yeah. I'm taking the course too. I want to know how this is done. I think I'm like Julia, though. I don't want to have it coming out of my body like him. She says she just has it come through the
Yeah, he at least
cloud.
has his mouth like Kai Muga has him coming out his eyes, which is like when you see
Oh,
that kind of stuff is like wow. Because
out
you
of
know what
his
it's like to get a
mouth.
piece of dust in your eye, and he's got these things coming out of his eyes, and it's like wow, jeez. So they get sort of more spectacular as they go along. They develop it more and more and more,
Oh,
and they just sort of up the ante every time and do something weirder and weirder and weirder. But again, we're a couple funerals away. Like people, because when we did the Desta one, it didn't get that many views because people are still into crash flying saucers and the government cover up and all that kind of stuff. And it's like
mhm.
this. I mean, if you get this, you realize like the world is a pretty strange place. If this is what's actually going on, this is much more interesting to me in terms of trying to understand how reality actually works.
Oh, for sure.
Who cares if the president knows? Who cares if the government knows? Who it doesn't really matter who created COVID, whether it was China or me or whatever. It's like it doesn't really matter. It's like how does reality work? And this is where it's sort of is a key thing where if you study this kind of stuff, you can sort of understand that it's a very weird world.
It
And
is. It is. Yeah, it
and
is.
there's more and more of these guys coming forward all the time. I had never heard of this guy till like last year, and I had tried to line up a couple of them to do this DNA experiment that I wanted to do. So
Oh, I think it definitely will do it because I watched them coming out and there was
yeah,
nothing coming out there, and they had a thin cloth that would show if there was any saliva on it,
yeah,
and he'd wait a few minutes and then all of a sudden more would come out. He actually told us not to film or actually told us not to watch because it might make you sick.
yeah,
But it was just jewels coming out, like 189 of them. So
yeah.
it
Wow.
was pretty cool. And everything that happened to me, nobody in the place knew anything about it except for one person, Debs. She's the
Yeah.
only one that knew that my husband had passed.
Oh,
She's
is
the
that right?
so yeah, and no one knew about my health. So it just blows my mind. Yeah. So
Wow.
how did that happen? How did they know about that? So yeah.
Yeah.
Did Desta tell them about her back?
No, I don't think so. She just was surprised that she was up there too, and she said she was pretty sure it wasn't Michael's hands. She said she knew what his hands looked like, and she said no, they weren't his hands.
Yeah, yeah.
And but she was kind of surprised too that she got called up front. So that's kind of interesting. It just as almost like a mystery in itself how I've known two of these healing things, and I knew both the people who I've interviewed both the people who went up, and Desta was the one that had hers. So
That's really crazy.
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I definitely go again, and I'm really fascinated with it now. And that's when I saw the course, and I'm taking the course with Michael, which so is Desta. So yeah, it's just fascinating. But
Wow.
I
And
definitely,
you're going to attend the one in Toronto, I imagine.
I didn't know anything about it. What is it?
Well, Michael's going to be in Toronto in November.
Okay, okay, okay. Didn't know that. So
Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. Like I'm going to be there, so I'll
okay,
be in the audience with you,
okay,
and I'm going to fly in there because I want to see this for myself. I've heard the stories, but it's like anything else. It's left brain. You listen to other people's stories and put it together, but it all falls apart like a house of cards when it's actually you. When you're actually there and you
yeah.
experience it, it's a whole different ball game.
Oh,
You
for
can,
sure.
I found that over and over again is that all the other stuff is based on faith, and it really doesn't mean too much. But when you actually have the experience, people can say whatever they want. You know what happened.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were asking me afterwards about what I felt and what happened up at the curtain. And when I tried to explain it to them, I'm not sure. Like you said, I experienced it. I
Yeah.
know what happened. I know what I felt. It was the real thing, and I know what the person said to me. Like
Wow.
you can. It's kind of like the seeing blindfold thing. You don't believe until you experience it, but
Yeah.
you have to believe to experience it. So
Yeah.
it's a catch
Yeah. That
22.
that otherwise people will say it's a hoax, and that's why I say you think you can do it, step right up, boy. I'm willing to take the bet. And then
I've had so many skeptics, and I've offered free training. I've
yeah.
said, if like I'm not trying to prove a thing. I'm just telling you what's possible, and I will train you for free if you want to try it. And not one person has taken me up
Yeah,
on
yeah, that's the thing. You call the bluff, and it's like Mike Tyson says, everybody's a tough guy until you get the first punch in the face.
it. That's right. Right.
So I'm glad we're sort of making some headway here. And as I said, I mean, it does. We don't have to solve it. We don't have to save the world or whatever. But we're helping to raise consciousness by repeating these stories and telling these stories, and Michael doing what he's doing. So I'm fascinated. And there's all these other ones that Desta goes down into the States to see. There's a couple other people who do this kind of stuff. And I've apparently there's a video which we're going to interview a girl out of Ohio, Stephanie, and she had the one where he had this thing where his jaw cracked when it was so big it was coming out of his mouth. So that may
Michael,
have been the one where he lost his teeth, where if he mentioned that,
she was there.
she had it on. She's got a video. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he said his whole jaw and he knocked his teeth out. It came in, it was so big.
Yeah. Yeah. She's got the video of that apparently. So,
Holy. He had a ring. It was absolutely gorgeous. It was like he had big fingers and it was like that big round. But the stone on it was absolutely amazing. And he was passing that one around. And he actually let someone take it home to meditate with it.
oh,
And the guy came back the next morning. He was like, "Oh wow!" Like he gave it back to him, but he said that was incredible. So, but he had all kinds of jewelry, all kinds of jewels. But the big jewel was amazing.
wow.
Yeah. It was
Well,
pretty incredible. I'm looking forward to seeing your face in November.
yeah,
Maybe
I may be
they'll
there even before because you can get these cheap flights now, $99. And I said to Desta, if it comes in and you want to go down to Ohio or something, I'll fly in and I'll go down with her because she's really getting into this kind of stuff.
Oh wow.
And so I'm interested to follow up on this kind of stuff, and it'll be nice to see you again. We haven't met for
Mhm.
quite a while, and we'll experience it together. I've never experienced it. It's the same thing. I've heard the stories,
Yeah.
but you always are going to have the doubt. And it's like, I gotta see this for myself. It's like,
I know what I experienced, and I'll tell you, it's pretty mind blowing. I'll tell you.
yeah. Well, he does a good show from what it sounds like, and hopefully he brings out a big one when I'm there or something like that. So thank you, Wendy, for telling me the story, and let's talk again soon. If anything else comes up, or if you want to do another thing with maybe bring this guy on who's doing he's almost blind, and we can do a little interview with him to
Yeah.
promote the blindfold reading, because that's again, I say, if that's what's actually going on, that changes everything. That changes reality. It's like what's actually doing the seeing. Where's the little picture in the head? Is it in the head? No, it's not. And it's very significant. But again, we're a number of funerals away that people have. There more people have to die, and the young generation will accept it, and the old generation just you're never going to convince them. But it
Hey,
moves slowly down the road, and we're getting there.
I have one video that opened a lot of people's eyes, a lot of kids' eyes. I think the second or third training with Mark, he was he doesn't play cards. He didn't even know what suits were or anything else. And I
Yeah.
pulled out this deck of cards and I started pulling them up. And he's blindfolded and he was blind. And he was getting every playing card that I held up, every one of them. And
Is
he,
that
at
right?
the end of it, he threw his arms up and goes, "I'm going to Vegas." It was actually
Wow.
quite funny. And he didn't even know the difference between the spade or the club, or like he
Wow.
didn't know the colors or anything. And he was just knocking them off. I'll send you that video too. It's
Yeah.
pretty.
And how long has he been doing this?
We actually he had some stuff going on, so we had to quit for about a month, but he's been doing it. I think he's had maybe 10 sessions. I'll have to look it up, but he hasn't been doing it for very long. But
Okay.
right at the beginning, he opened right up, just right up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's pretty
Wow.
I'll
It's a
send
fascinating world, isn't it?
you I'll send you that video. It's pretty cool.
Beautiful. I appreciate it, Wendy.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, take care.
Beautiful.
Bye.
Bye bye.